Yes, good morning and welcome. You're still watching Power Breakfast on Citizen TV, and it's that time when we take a look at the headlines this morning, and we're privileged to have MP Isaac Mwaura on our news review panel. It's been a while on this news review panel. It's good to have you back. Karibu sana. And also Vincent Kimosop. Now we can call you resident policy analyst. I think you've earned the title. It's official. Karibu sana. Now the headlines today are very interesting. No mass action after polls warn security chiefs. New government document lists potential violence hotspots across the country and proposes criminalizing refusal to accept election results. I don't know how possible that is. NASA's drastic step: with just a little over 3 weeks to deadline of picking presidential candidate, opposition drops one of its three key options on Monday to unleash against Uhuru. We were hoping to have at least one more gentleman from the opposition, that side of the political divide, to explain to us what exactly is happening. The other big story, of course, is that President Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday was on Citizen TV. Very exclusive live interview on Nipashe with Kenyatta and Lulu Hassan, and it was a nice thing to watch the president in a different setting. Just relaxed. Of course, the last few weeks we've seen him a bit temperamental, and probably let's just watch a bit of the story by Jackie Maribe on the president's interview yesterday.
In a sit-down with Citizen Television's Nipashe Weekendi anchors Kenyatta and Lulu Hassan today, President Kenyatta would address himself to the nomination headache that has beleaguered his Jubilee party in the wake of claims that a cartel is behind crafting the outcome for the Nairobi governor's race.
Mimi sita ingilia kamwe haki ya Wakenya, haswa wafuasi wa Jubilee, kuchagua yule ambaye wangependa awaongoze katika nyadhifa mbalimbali ambazo zitakuweko. I am ready to be an independent, honest broker ya kulete watu pamoja.
And while politics draws perception of loyalty and hatred, the president would downplay any such hatred towards his opponents, particularly Raila Odinga.
Mimi sichukui mtu yeyote. Na munaona hata wakati nakutana sinamuita ndugu yangu na tunasalimiana. Jameni, mimi sichukui mtu yeyote. Lakini nasema tunatofautiana kisiasa, lakini kutafuta kuwa
nchi ndo anaichukulia vibaya.
Kuwa watu hawasikilizani kisiasa sio kwani ya maadui. Siasa sio adui.
Ninyi ni marafiki.
Allah. Labda yeye aseme sio rafiki yangu.
But his outbursts have not gone unnoticed.
Hiyo sio kweli. Mimi sina hasira hata kidogo. Lakini kunafika wakati lazima useme ukweli wako. Na unajua ukiwa sasa wewe uko na mwelekeo wako, uko na lengo lako, pahali ambapo unataka kufika. Lakini mwingine haja na yake ambaye mimi sihusikani naye. Lakini wataka kuja kusumbua yangu na mimi sijasumbua yako. Sasa ingine lazima mtu aelezane ukweli. Na ndipo mimi hata kama hiyo wanasema.
The anger, however, had been brought about by the just ended 100-day doctor strike as well.
Na mimi nikasema, jameni, mimi nataka niwasikilize na mimi nataka tusaidiane. Lakini jameni, tusaidiane mkiwa kwa kazi.
But the government has gone ahead to make good its intention to outsource doctors from neighboring countries. The president's take:
walimu nchi nyingi, nasema sisi kama Afrika Mashariki tuwasema kila mtu kutoka Afrika Mashariki awe na uhuru wa kufanya kazi Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, na pia wenzetu wa nchi hiyo, na ndio umoja wetu uimarike. Wawe na uhuru wa kutembea, kufanya kazi, kufanya biashara, kulima.
Kenyatta went ahead to defend his track record, insisting his administration has launched its own projects and his re-election bid was on.
Yes, and that story by Jackie Maribe is what we want to begin with. And even as we were watching that story, we were joined on set by Norman Magaya, the head of court secretariat. That's what we know you as. If at all now, because of NASA, we need you to clarify on your new title now.
It's NASA.
It's NASA. Head of Secretariat NASA.
Yes.
Okay. Karibu sana. Now, of course, Among the things that the president said, and he spoke about a lot of things, he touched on what was happening in Nairobi and Nairobi politics. I know you had an opportunity to talk about it yesterday as well, and it's a race for Nairobi governor. And of course, there's been talk about State House, or rather the Jubilee leadership, having a preferred candidate within Jubilee, or a person whom they would prefer to get the Jubilee ticket. The president says that he is not in any way favoring any candidate. Now, how possible is that? That the president or the leadership of a political party can actually be totally impartial in such a race, that they have no preference at all?
I think first and foremost is to say Dena and Lulu Hassan were quite excited yesterday.
Who wouldn't be?
to interview the president, but I also like the fact that they were very candid. And also it was an easy, interview. I liked seeing our president looking relaxed and very also candid, also even about other issues that he may not discuss, as well in public. And he said very clearly when a question was asked that he does not back anybody. I find it very interesting of his use of the word broker, that he would be willing to work as a broker, because when you hear the word broker, you imagine. But yes, of course, you can broker peace, you can broker truce, you can broker some agreement between candidates. Because clearly, from the Angela Ambido's number, Infotrack, if then Sonko, for example, and Peter Kenneth were to be on the same ticket or unite, it would therefore mean that then Kidero would be in problems.
Yes.
And so therefore you can actually clearly see, because majority of the people who are running for office are from the Jubilee side of the coalition. Because you see, you have Dennis Awero, you have Bishop Wanjiru. So that then clearly, if then Jubilee was to put one candidate, a likable candidate, then it would follow that then Kidero would be in problems. However, Fred, I must say that looking at the acrimonious debate that or interview that Hussein had with one Mike Sonko, who also ended up abusing people with albinism in the process, and of course later on organizing a shoddy press interview with some people with albinism just to do PR exercise. And I really condemn that strongly, and we don't take that as an apology, and we are going to take action as albinism for Kenya, because you need to respect people. You don't just need to come and look like you are using people as tissue paper. People with albinism must be respected, they must not be misused. I want to say that Nairobi deserves better. Nairobi deserves better. I think many people are disappointed by one Evans Kidero, because he has not really lived up to the expectations. This is a man I have engaged personally, and I had a lot of hopes. And I think many people thought that then by electing somebody who has a corporate background, somebody who has run multinationals, then Nairobi would be in safe hands. But then what we are seeing is a situation where the people in Nairobi are lost for options. You can see 18% of Kenyans, as per that poll, are undecided, of Nairobians. And
I know you're referring to a poll that we've not even quoted, and of course Isaac More is referring to a poll, and that story is on page 8 of the Standard, a poll by Infotrack. A new survey puts Governor Evans Kidero ahead of his 6 opponents eyeing the seat in the August 8th general election. According to the poll by Infotrack Research, Dr. Kidero enjoys a 35.3% popularity rating. Now, of course, the second person, Mike Sonko, would get 23%, while Peter Kenneth would get 20%. So even Sonko is ahead of Peter Kenneth.
Yes.
But now the question was, and the way I want this debate to go is whether or not President Uhuru Kenyatta can actually be impartial in this race in Nairobi. Surely, if whatever people are seeing on TV and the kinds of debates and acrimony and all these things, the president is not blind to this as well.
I think this is it. The president clearly said that he is willing to be an independent arbiter. And as a head of government, as a head of Jubilee Party, I think that is very much in order. That's been statesmanly. And he says if they don't agree, then the people will sort them out. And so therefore it remains to be seen how Peter Kenneth and Mike Sonko will sort it out also. Because you see, Sonko is on record as saying they cannot sit down and negotiate with Peter Kenneth, although we know that people have even said that they would rather die than resign. Then later on they backtrack. But I want to say that one of the things that this poll has done is to debunk the myth that Mike Sonko is unassailable. Because clearly a 3% lead with in a poll where there is a margin of error of 3.5%, plus minus 3.5, then clearly you can see it's almost a tie. And so therefore we would want to see, and this is not just a message for the Jubilee gubernatorial race. It's across the various seats that people are running for the seats across the country, that the president would want to say that Jubilee will have a free and fair nomination.
Okay, but of course the president and his deputy have been very clear that the governor for Nairobi has to be within Jubilee for obvious reasons, because of their working relationship. They want someone whom they can talk to anytime and say this and the other. Probably they would work closer if at all they come from the same party. It should come naturally that they would want to select or someone they would actually want to pinpoint and pick someone that this person looks like we can work better with him.
I think, first of all, I want to thank God for earning a title this morning. Let me begin with that, and I appreciate the opportunity. Let's look at, I will look at it in two ways. He was speaking as the head of state. He's also head of government and a head of a political faction. So, as a head of state, the best place to start with, as a head of government, the best place to start with is the Jubilee Manifesto. Now, the Jubilee Manifesto has 3 planks, that is Uchumi, Uwazi, and Umoja. If your core plank of your manifesto is Uchumi, that is economy, and the place where 50% of the GDP is generated being Nairobi, there is no way that you can tell me you can be impartial on who becomes the CEO of the engine that drives the economy of the country.
Clearly he has a preferred.
So for me, as the head of Jubilee wing of the coalition, I understand why his posture had to be that on this issue I'm independent. Why? Because he has to keep the House united and ensure that there is sanity in the House. But if you talk to him in a different quarter, maybe that when they are chairing a cabinet meeting or when they are discussing real issues about the economy of the country, he will tell you truly there has been a challenge. Now, the president, he was on his way to, I think that was along Thika Road, and he actually spoke to people and says that the performance of the current administration has not been fair. You remember, he even spoke and says that as traders, it has been a challenge, and it was, we discussed it, I even remember in this program, and truly it's very clear that he would prefer somebody from the Jubilee side. Now, and you can see, therefore, that tells you that issue of impartiality is even demonstrated. We would prefer somebody. And the deputy president, who is able, number 2, has said clearly that of all the things we are focusing on, we want to make sure that we win the governor seat of Nairobi. So if you add all those things together, the message from the president has to be read and understood in context, that he was speaking as a head of a Jubilee faction, and he wants to keep his house united.
Yes. Bwana Norman Magaya, of course, Bwana Evans Kidero is leading, according to this poll, 35.3%. That's at least 10-12% ahead of Mike Sonko, who's the next there in line. But back to Jubilee politics, and from outside looking in. Of course, do you believe the president when he says that he does not have a preferred candidate within Jubilee to run for governor of Nairobi?
That is a lie nicely told. You know, these processes are driven by perception, and perception is derived from the manner in which the president conducts himself. And I think there has been a way to create a straitjacket for Jubilee politics in Nairobi for obvious reasons. That if you want to win in the city, then you must have a united team. So I think there is somewhere Uhuru is coming from, because he can see the danger. He is able to see what the aspirants in the field themselves may not see, because sometimes ambitions blind people. And so he's trying to foresee a situation where if there is no proper organization and agreement, and sometimes nominations can be criminals and produce unintended results. And I think that is something he has been keen to avoid. And that is
when you talk of unintended results,
unintended results may lead to defections depending on how people are handled. And that could be critical ultimately at the ballot on 8th of August. And that is the entry point for the president, to ensure that the fallout is not as grave as it could be, and that if this conflict could be avoided, then the better for him. But largely, Jubilee gets a fighting chance in Nairobi, depending in the manner in which they will handle one Mike Songo. As much as his behavior may not be acceptable in certain quarters, but I think ultimately for Jubilee to have a fighting chance in Nairobi, it will depend on how they manage and handle one Mike Songo. If it is not properly handled, then it could lead to those unintended results I'm talking about. Because the two of them, if you look at Kenyatta and Songo, have a different command of the voting constituency in Nairobi. And I think Songo has an edge over it, despite what the opinion polls are showing. So the manner in which Songo is handled ultimately, and I think that is something the president has been keen to avoid, by ensuring that if there could be consensus building ahead of the primaries, then that can be done. But you can see the daggers are drawn, and reading the way the politics are being played, I will not be surprised if one of those candidates has a ticket hiding somewhere.
And it could just be, and in a short while, because we're going for nominations in the next less than a month or so, and that's the biggest headache. If you look at the headlines this morning, it's all about nominations. Now's a drastic step, that's about the presidential nominations. Jubilee is already having problems with the smart card. That's also on the front page of the Daily Nation. Uhuru Party faces crisis over poll card, meaning that now the nominations are taking center stage, and that is the main discussion we'll be having after this break.